Hello everyone, we got a quick video here discussing some recent signings that happened today on Sunday. Lots of interesting things have happened. Look to all of those that have at least happened at this point of the recording of this video coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Nintendo Hockey channel. Before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video, subscribe down below, thank you for your support whenever you're able to, so if you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, and hopefully you'll comment down in the comment section below so we can all discuss in this video. Now we've had a handful of things happen today. There's a lot of signings with qualifying offers needing to be updated by 2 p.m. Pacific time. We've gotten most of the teams and who they've qualified and not qualified, but there are a few teams that we haven't reached yet, so I will do a full video on that, on who doesn't get qualified, who are RFAs, who are going to be heading to free agency at this point in time. I'll do that as a separate video, but today we're going to be talking about a handful of signings, 3 buyouts, and 3 trades that happened at the recording of this video. So we'll get to the signings first. At this point, recording this video, there are 12 signings to talk about here, so we'll just go through some of the smaller ones quickly. The guys who signed at $775,000. The Seattle Kraken extended UFA left winger Max McCormick. He gets a 2-year extension with AV of $775,000. Decent call-up option, played most of this season this past year at the AHL level, so it's a pretty good sign there for the Kraken to get some more depth from the forward group. They also signed Alice Steska, who came over from Europe last year, played a good season in the AHL. He's a goaltender, signs a 1-year deal with AV of $775,000. Pretty good sign there for the Kraken to get some more depth in the net position, so it's pretty good for them. They also extend a couple of other players, including their first ever player who signed a contract, Luke Hedman. He gets a 1-year extension with AV of $775,000, who's an RFA. Not too surprised. He'll probably remain in the minors. And they also signed John Hayden, who's a really good call-up option. Signed him on a 1-year deal with AV of $775,000. Another solid call-up option, just like McCormick, so get some more depth in that forward group. That's pretty good. The Vancouver Canucks have extended Jet Wu. Wu, who was at one point a really good prospect, more of an AHL player now, could maybe be a 6th or 7th defenseman for the Canucks. Sent a 1-year extension with AV of $775,000 up against start of next year. Once again, pretty good signing there. Add some more depth to their defense, of course. That's pretty good for the Canucks. The Seattle Jose Sharks have extended winger Justin Bailey. Got some NHL time last year. Actually looked pretty good, so he should be a solid call-up option there for the Sharks. He gets a 1-year extension with AV of $775,000 up against start of next year. Once again, another solid call-up option. The St. Louis Blues have extended Hunter Skinner. He was acquired as part of the Tarasenko deal. Solid defensive prospect. Could have maybe eventually be a solid 6th, 7th defenseman who was an RFA. Gets a 1-year extension with AV of $775,000. So once again, pretty solid signing there for the Blues. So those were some of the lower end signings. So the Blues signed Skinner, the Sharks signed Bailey, the Canucks signed Wu, the Kraken signed Hayden, Hedman, Steska, and McCormick. So those are all the lower end signings. Going over to the higher end signings that happened today, so there were a couple of them. First, the San Jose Sharks have extended right wing / center Luke Kunin on a 1-year extension with an AV of $2.75 million up against start of next year. Kunin's a really good player. He's been bouncing around the past couple of years. Kunin is going to be a UFA at the end of this deal. This past year, put up 11 goals and 18 points in 77 games after having an injury-riddled year before that, putting up only 5 goals and 13 points in 31 games. I think he could be still a solid player who puts up somewhere between like 25 and 35 points a year if he can be consistent and in the right spot. So pretty solid sign there for Sharks. I won't be surprised if he has a solid season, if he could be a potential trade target at the deadline. So that's a pretty good solid sign there for the Sharks. Toronto Maple Leafs have taken one of the top end players off the free agent list and off the free agent market, and one of the players who was on my top 50 free agent list, and that's Max Domi. Domi, who's a center right winger, actually feeling quite well with the Leafs this past year, gets a 4-year extension with AV of $3.75. Given the fact there was a lot of talk that he was looking for 4 or 5, maybe even $6 million, $3.75 from Domi is a steal in my opinion. That's a pretty good sign there for the Leafs. Domi 2 years ago had 20 goals and 56 points in 80 games with the Hawks and the Stars combined. He signed a 1-year deal in Toronto, put up 9 goals and 47 points in 80 games this year with Toronto. Also had 4 points in 7 playoff games. Looked pretty good. So he has been a really good fit there for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're able to extend him on a longer term deal. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Leafs. Then we saw the Toronto Maple Leafs also extend someone who was on the trade market, and that's Timothy Liljegren. Liljegren was a right shot defenseman a lot of people thought might get moved. Signs a 2-year extension. He was an RFA with AV of $3 million up against start of next year. So it's a pretty good move there for the Leafs to sign Liljegren. Liljegren will be a UFA at the end of the deal, so we shall see if he winds up remaining longer past that contract. Liljegren 2 years ago had 6 goals and 18 points in 67 games. This past year had 3 goals and 23 points in 55 games. So looks like a pretty good defenseman. I still think he can eventually be a solid top 4 right shot D, so pretty good sign there for the Leafs. Then we saw the Utah franchise extend one of their major RFAs in Sean Durzi. Durzi, who can play both sides, left and and right. Signs a 4-year extension with AV of $6 million to begin to start next year. So that's a pretty good solid sign there for the Utah franchise to get Durzi extended. 2 years ago, had 9 goals and 38 points in 72 games with LA. They knew they weren't going to be able to sign him, so they moved him to Arizona. This past year had 9 goals and 41 points in 76 games with Arizona. Looked really good, especially with the defensive help. I think Durzi could be a solid second, even first pair defenseman there this year for the Utah franchise. So it's pretty good for the Utah to get him locked up. And then we also saw that the Anaheim Ducks signed Isaac Lundestrom. Lundestrom, who was a 2018 first-round pick, center/left winger, signs a 1-year extension with AV of $1.5 million that'll begin to start next year. Lundestrom, 2 years ago, had 4 goals and 14 points in 61 games. This past year, 5 goals and 11 points in only 46 games due to injuries. Looked pretty good, does have some injury history, but still, I think he should still be a solid middle 6'4" there for a Duck, so a pretty good sign there at only $1.5 million. So those were signs from the past couple of days. We saw a lot of interesting ones, and some of the big ones were guys like Utah signing Durzi, Lundestrom signing Anaheim, Toronto signing Liljegren and Domi, as well as San Jose signing Kunin, so some interesting stuff there. Going over to the buyouts, we saw 3 buyouts happen today. Today's the last day of buyout action, so until the second buyout window opens for any teams who have players hitting arbitration, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But we saw 3 ones. One was a little bit surprising. We'll get to that one first, and that was the Columbus Blue Jackets buying out the final year of Campbell and Boqvist's contract. Now, Boqvist is still an RFA, so he gets a 1/3 buyout, so that actually saves the team $66,000 in cap savings this year, and will leave them with a $530,000 cap hit for next year. So it's not overly bad there for the Jackets, and actually saves them some cap space. So I can see why they would sort of make this move. Boqvist is still a really good third pair defenseman. I thought they could have had a taker or two out there and got something back for him, but it seems like they just wanted to move on from him and needed to give him a fresh start. So Boqvist winds up getting bought out, and he'll be on the cap hit for the next 2 years. Then we saw one who I thought could very likely be bought out, but wasn't sure if he was going to, and Jack Campbell wind up being bought out. So not too surprised there. They just signed Picard to be their backup. Skinner had a very fantastic run this year as the starter, so they wound up moving on from Campbell. I think it's a smart move for them. It's going to save them about $4.1 million in cap space for this upcoming season. It's going to save them about $3 million next year, and it's going to save them about $2.5 million the year after. So it's going to save them a decent amount, but he's going to be on the cap hit for 3 years afterwards at $1.5 million. So it's once again not overly ideal given the fact he's going to be on the book for the next 6 years, but Campbell was making 5.25 at the AHL level. It's just not going to work for the Oilers anymore, and they need some more cap flexibility, so they buy out Campbell. Now Campbell's going to be heading to free agency. And then you also have the Winnipeg Jets, as they bought out Nate Schmidt. Schmidt, who was entering the final year of his deal, I think at $5.9 million cap hit, winds up getting bought out. I'll leave the Jets with a $2.7 million cap hit for this upcoming offseason, and then we'll have a $1.6 million cap hit for next year. So it's once again, it saves them a little bit of money, saves them I think around $3.2 million in cap space, and gets Schmidt, who was more of a third pair, even spare defenseman at some points this year, off the roster. So it's really good for the Jets. Once again, not overly ideal given the fact he's going to be on the cap hit for the next 2 seasons, but I think that's a pretty good move there for the Jets. So the Jets buy out Nate Schmidt, the Oilers buy out Jack Campbell, and the Jackets buy out Boqvist. So Boqvist and Schmidt will join the free agent market on the defensive core, while Campbell will be another option for a team who try and look for maybe a cheap backup. So some pretty interesting options there, but the last 3 players who can be bought out in the first buyout window have happened, and that's Boqvist, Campbell, and Skinner. And lastly, going over to 3 trades we've seen earlier today, not anything overly significant. First, we saw Tampa Bay Lightning move their 2025 third-round pick to Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for signing rights to Jake Guentzel. Guentzel was, I think, 11th on my trade bait board, which you guys can still look at. I'm trying to update it right now. But some interesting stuff there to see Guentzel be traded. I'm not overly shocked that we saw Guentzel get dealt. Canes were able to get a third-round pick for Guentzel, who's never going to be brought back by the Hurricanes, so they at least get able to get something for him. Meanwhile, Guentzel, who's a winger, is going to Tampa at this point in time. At least his signing rights are coming off a season where he had 30 goals and 77 points in 67 games. Looks like Tampa's made a priority to try and sign him. They are one of the no-tax states, so they could easily sign him for maybe a little bit under what a lot of people thought he could get, so maybe something around like $8.5 million instead of something like over 10. So that could be a really good pickup there for the Bulls. Now, once again, at this point in the day, around 6 p.m. Pacific time, there's been no mentions of a contract extension, at least not to my knowledge, but we might still get one in the not-too-distant future, so we'll have to keep our eye on that. But that was an interesting trade to see Guentzel go to Tampa, at least the signing rates for a third-round pick. Then we saw a small prospect swap. Tampa gets Lucas Svechkovsky from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Bennett MacArthur, so it's a decent prospect swap. Svechkovsky with a 4th-round pick in the 2020 draft of the Penguins, entering the final year of his ELC, coming off a season where he had 37 points in 30 ACHL games. Looks like a pretty good player there in the prospect pool, so could be a decent ad there for Tampa. And then we saw a Pittsburgh Penguins acquire Bennett MacArthur. MacArthur, who is a left winger, undrafted prospect, also in the final year of his ELC, played this past year in the ECHL, putting up 55 games of ECHL action, 11 goals, 32 points. Looks like a decent ECHL player, so a decent prospect swap. Maybe they'll help for both sides, so some interesting prospect swap. And then we saw the Montreal Canadiens acquire a 4th round pick in 2026. That's conditional from the New Jersey Devils in exchange for Jonathan Kovacevic. So for the Devils, they are going to move whichever one is the highest of the 3 4th rounders they currently have in the 2026 draft. So it's either Dallas's, New Jersey's, or Winnipeg's. So it's a pretty good pickup there for the Canadiens. Kovacevic was a waiver pickup, so they get a 4th round pick for a waiver pickup. Meanwhile, for the Devils, they get a solid depth defenseman in Kovacevic, who I think on that team could be 6th or 7th D on their team. He's a right shot defenseman. Entering the final year of his deal, he'll be a UFA at the end of the contract. Coming off a season where he had 6 goals, which was a career high, and 13 points in 62 games with the Canadiens. The Canadiens have a crowded blue line. They really need to move someone, so they do move on from Kovacevic. Wouldn't be surprised if this was the only defenseman they move on from. So interesting stuff there, but that was a decent trade for those two teams. So that's all the moves we've had so far. Those are 12 signings, 3 buyouts, and 3 trades from over the past couple days. Definitely after you guys thoughts on these things down in the comment section below, and stay tuned as we're going to have more videos over the next little while. That's all we're talking for today. We're going to this video. If you like it, remember to subscribe down below. Thank you for your support. We're able to help you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. So you can discuss today's video, or to the blog, talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So if you check that out, I'll leave a link down in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.